My fiancé's bumhole is destroyed by a big black cock when she cheats on me. Rosanna and I been engaged for about 3 months. We'd been living together for a year and dating for about 6 months prior. She was about 5 feet 6, light brown hair down to her neck, pretty face, slim, sweet little boobs with pink little nipples and a bum like a basketball. I love her and she loves me. However, when she goes out drinking with her friends she can go a bit wild. Rosanna would tell me about her exploits the next day. How she kissed a man or touched a guy up. Rosanna never had cheated and she always told me what she did. I didn't mind as long as she didn't have any kind of sex with them and that she came home to me. This evening Rosanna and her friends were going out to a club to celebrate her friend's Eva's birthday. When my fiancée walked into the lounge she looked absolutely stunning. Wearing a short sparkly dark blue dress with her jewelry and tanned body, my cock stiffened at the sight. She walked over to me and kissed me firmly on the lips and said, "I'll be home late, Jim." Having already called a taxi, it soon arrived and she left. When it had gone 12 with Rosanna not yet home, I went to bed as I had to work early the next day. I thought about jerking off at the image of her in that dress but thought I'd wait until she can please me tomorrow. When I woke in the morning I looked over to her side of the bed and there was Rosanna was sleeping on her front. This was unusual because she usually slept on her side or sometimes on her back. Anyway, I went and showered and put my clothes on, then went downstairs to make breakfast. Once I finished and had put my jacket on, I went to see if she was awake before I left. Reaching her side of the bed, she was still asleep, but as I leant over to kiss her cheek she woke up. Giving me a smile, she turned over onto her back and let out a cry of pain. Concerned, I said, "What's wrong?" and she blushed and said, "Oh, it's okay, I just hurt my bum." Touching her face I said, "How did you do that?" And she seemed to hesitate before saying, "Hey, you'll be late for work." So I kissed her again on the lips and drove to work. As I did, I wondered why she wouldn't tell me how she hurt her bum. When I arrived home after work, Rosanna was making dinner in the kitchen. Walking up behind her I kissed her neck, making her jump, then I squeezed her bum, forgetting she had hurt it. Letting out another cry I said, "Sorry, I forgot you were in pain." Looking at me like she wanted to tell me something, she turned back to the food counter and carried on chopping vegetables. After taking off my work clothes and putting on joggers and t-shirt, I went and sat in the lounge. Rosanna appeared at the door and said, "Jim, I need to tell you something." She came over to me and sat very slowly down and her face grimaced. At the club last night there were these 4 guys. We were drinking and chatting, and this one guy, Don, was really nice. He's black and strong and works on a building site. Eva said we should all go back to her apartment, and well, I ended up in bed with Don and he fucked me up the bum. Looking at her with disgust and disbelief, I tried not to get angry but was falling. Many questions were going through my mind, such as, "We are engaged, so why would you cheat, and couldn't you have said no?" I also wondered why it was that whenever I tried to go near her perfect bumhole with my cock or even my tongue, she would always say, "No, not now." However, I was unable to speak and just sat there staring at her. She was crying now and said, "I'll never cheat on you again. Please believe me." Finally, after an awkward silence, I was able to speak. I said, "Show me your bum." Looking confused at me, I gestured for her to stand up and she did. Lifting up her short black skirt, I pulled down her pink satin panties, then said, "Bend over." Pulling her cheeks gently apart, I saw her bumhole, which I had admired for so long, was red and swollen. "Stay there," I said as I went and got a tube of cream and a tissue. Coming back to the sofa, I squeezed a big blob of cream onto the tissue, then smeared it all over her bum. Rosanna moaned at first, then it began to soothe her. I pulled her panties up and let her skirt drop down, then she sat next to me. Though I was still angry, I took her hand and held it, and she looked at me with tears still in her eyes. Can you ever forgive me, Jim? She asked, and thinking before I spoke I said, with time I will. I then had to ask why is you never let me touch your bumhole but you let Dawn. I was saving it as a special treat for you, perhaps on our honeymoon, she replied. Why did you change your mind and let Dawn? I asked, and she replied, I was drunk and to be honest I was turned on by the size of his cock, and when he asked if he could put it in my bum I said yes. Big is he then? Asking jealously, what did it feel like? Looking at me puzzled she said, if you really want to know, his cock was huge, and as for what it felt like. For the first 10 minutes it hurt like fuck, but for the other 20 minutes or so it felt amazing. He lasted for half hour? I hope you wore a condom? I asked, and Rosanna replied, over half hour, and yes, we used a condom and lots of lube, but it still hurt. Did you come? I asked, unsure if I wanted to know, and she replied, I did once when I played with my pussy at the same time he was in me. Just so you know, he didn't put his dick in my mouth or my pussy. Do you like big cocks then? I asked, and Rosanna replied, I do, but I love yours too. Oh thanks, I said, and she quickly added, yours is a good size, Jim. She held my hand even tighter and said, you can put yours in my bum whenever you want, Jim, when it's not so sore, and smiling at her I said maybe. That night when we went to bed and we only kissed goodnight, but as I lay there thinking about Rosanna with Dawn's big cock inside her I started to get aroused. Soon my cock was throbbing in my pajama shorts as I imagined her beautiful bum in the air and him thrusting into her tight hole. Not wanting to disturb her I went to the bathroom and jerked off, then I went back to bed. Over the next week we didn't mention what had happened, and we had even begun to have sex again as my anger had passed. It was Saturday afternoon and I was in the kitchen when Rosanna's phone received a message. I called out to her and she replied, tell me what it says. Picking up the phone and typing her code in the message was from Dawn saying, when can we meet up again, I miss your arsehole. Taking the phone into the lounge where Rosanna was I told her what the message said, and she blushed and looked down on the ground before saying, I forgot I'd given him my number. Looking at her I said, you didn't tell him you were engaged? Blushing even more she said no. Walking over to her I lifted her face with my hand and kissed her on the lips. Then I said, why don't you invite him over and I can watch him put his huge cock in your bum?